Good evening, everyone. Welcome. The adequate notice of this regular meeting as required by the Open Public Meetings Act was provided by the posting, mailing, delivery, and filing of this notice on January 9th, 2023. This notice was on those dates posted on the bulletin board in the township office, sent to the Courier News and Tap into Warren, and filed with the township clerk of the Township of Warren, all in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act. Please join me in rising for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I will call the roll. Mr. Desai.
Here.
Mrs. Whitebaum.
Here.
Ms. Keller.
Here.
Mr. Otto.
Here.
Mr. Valentino.
Here.
Mr. Weinstein.
Here.
Mrs. Zahn.
Here.
Mr. Bazee.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Resolved that the Board of Education approves the public and private session minutes of the February 6th, 2023 board meeting.
Is there a second? Second.
All right, I will call the roll on the minutes. Mr. Desai.
Yes.
Mrs. Whitebaum.
Yes.
Ms. Keller.
Yes.
Mr. Otto.
Yes.
Mr. Valentino.
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein.
Yes.
Mrs. Zahn.
Yes.
Mr. Bazee.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Correspondence and information. I'll turn over to Dr. Mingle.
No HIB investigations to report. There was one out-of-school suspension at Angela El Tomaso School, and the board received 3 emails regarding the board vacancy that's on the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Mingo. Well, welcome to ALT. Welcome to our guests who joined us tonight. Unfortunately, the weather did not cooperate, so the board missed out on what I've heard is some pretty impressive reading fairs and book fairs, and among other things. So somehow we'll try to make that back up if we can, as well as get our new board members a tour of this building. So look forward to that. I did want to draw the board's attention to, as we regularly do, items C1 and C2 on the agenda. This is our new staff that will be joining us. Certainly a welcome to them. We hope they are as excited to join us as we are to have them here. And item C9, after over 25 years, we wish Mrs. Crum very, very, very well in her retirement, and certainly thank her for all she has done for our district and our children. So thank you to Mrs. Crum. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Mingle.
Thank you, Mr. Bazee. This is basically becomes the way I start each meeting during this time of the year. I want to express congratulations to the middle school forensics public speaking team under direction of Dr. Cooper, who won first place at the Mount St. Mary Academy tournament recently. I also want to mention a couple of emergency crisis response events that have happened recently and thank our staff first at Mount Horeb School, who last week there was a very serious motor vehicle accident right in front of Mount Horeb School, almost exactly at dismissal time. Thankfully, none of our community members were involved, but it was a serious accident. Our staff jumped into action, including Nurse Sancelli and Principal Cook, who were 2 of the first people on the scene of the accident and providing first aid to the injured member in the vehicle. We will come back and address them at a future board meeting as well to thank them for their service to the community. But the staff in general really came together, as they always do during a crisis response, to make sure that we kept everybody safe in the building. We had to postpone dismissal for some kids by a few minutes, for others by up to about 20 minutes. And, you know, the staff really shines in those moments. Today, we also had an emergency response at Central School for a smell of natural gas. While we had a community event about to start, a science day with parents and PTO members in the building, everybody did a great job there too. Moving away from the building, first responders were there quickly to help us clear the building and get everybody back in. So we drill for these things all the time. We do a lot of tabletops and a lot of discussion, but it's nice when the event actually happens. Our students, our staff, the community at large really comes together to do the right thing. I also wanted to just mention, I think Mrs. Zahn might give more detail about this later on, but If you want to put on your calendars on Monday, March 27th at 6:30 PM, the Finance Committee of the board will be holding a public information session about the 2023-24 budget. Monday, March 27th at 6:30. That'll be at Warren Middle School, open to the public. It's an opportunity in an informal setting to hear more information, ask questions, kind of engage in a dialogue around the budget. We'll still have our formal presentations and discussions at the meetings in March and April, but that's more of an informal opportunity. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Mingo. Next on the agenda is our student presentation, which unfortunately we will not be doing tonight. Moving on from that, we have Board of Education candidates. So this is certainly a unique meeting. We have 3 people who have applied. We are extremely happy to see 3 members of the public who wish to take this on, extend their volunteerism. Having sat in your seat in 2016, be careful what happens. You could be here in 6 or 7 years, but we certainly wish you all the best and thank you for coming. So the method for doing this is there's 3 candidates. There's all 3 of your names. We'll draw to see who goes first. So there's going to be 3 questions. I'm going to try to lay it out all up front so it's here. So get that out of the way. So question number 1, person A will go first, then B, then C. Question number 2 will be person B, then C, then A. Question 3 will be C, A, B. So you each have the opportunity to go first. There's 3 questions. I'm happy to share the questions with you now up front, so there's no hidden surprises on who goes what and when and where. The first question will be, what motivates you to want to become a board member? The second question is, looking ahead to the next 10 months of the term of this seat, can you share what you intend to bring to the board and our district? And the third is just an opportunity to share. It's an open mic for you. You have 5 minutes, whatever you want to share with the board, whatever was not covered in those questions that you'd like to share with us. By all means, we would be happy to hear that. Once we've heard from all 3 candidates on all 3 questions, the board will go into executive session. The board will come out of executive session and make a decision in public or cast votes in public, if you will. And at which point, assuming there's majority, we would have the seating of the new board member. So I think I covered it as best I could. So Mrs. Zahn can pick.
It's her koozie.
It's my koozie.
So this will be for person A.
Candidate A is Mark Bishi. Candidate B is Rich K. I'm sorry. Okay. I'll learn it, I promise. And candidate C is Mr. Stephen Tor.
Great. So we will, thank you, Mrs. Zahn. We will start with question, can I have a koozie back? Question number 1. In the order of this will be Mark, Rich, and then followed by Stephen. And that question is, what motivates you to want to become a board member? So there's a microphone behind you, if you would not mind starting, Mr. Bishi.
Sure. And just sit right here, right?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Yes.
What motivates? So 3 thoughts. Just giving back to the community is the primary motivator that had me run 3 years ago, or not even run, but get written in. Just using my skills as best I could to give back to the community in Warren. The second thought is, I think we have a very good school district. We're known for that, right? But I always try to think at the margin, can we be better? So what I'd like to bring to the board and to the district over the next 10 months would just be to try to help in the detailed, not detailed running of the school district, because that's the administration's job, but just to add value in terms of curriculum, finance, bring it all together and try to make the school district that as good as it could be. Take it to the next level. And I think that might be it. I think that's it for that question. Great. This way.
Thank you. We will next go to Rich. Again, the question is, what motivates you to want to become a board member?
So the reason I chose to run is I have 3 children entering the district. I've been in the district since about 1997. I've previously volunteered and served the community. So I'm just looking to give back and try to better the district for my children and the future that they're going to be growing up through.
Thank you. And finally, we will go to Stephen. Again, the question, what motivates you to want to become a board member?
Okay, so I have 3 children in the district, 2 of them within the elementary system right now. I think it's actually an exceptional school district, and I've obviously said that on a number of occasions. And I would like to see it stay an exceptional school district and get better, ideally every year. I'd also say that my family have benefited from many of the special services that the school district offers. In a way, frankly, that impressed us because my wife headed that in her role back in the UK. And it doesn't happen that way as it does here. Having benefited in the way we did, I actually view it as if anything, as an obligation, a nice obligation, but an obligation nevertheless to make a contribution and see that continue moving forward.
Good, thank you. We will move on to question 2. We will start with Rich for this question. The question is, looking ahead to the next 10 months for the term of this seat, can you share what you intend to bring to the board and our district?
So for the next 10 months, I hope to bring some of my previous experiences working both for a Board of Education in the past, as well as my current experience dealing with budget, technology, construction related issues, and really just hoping to continue to improve the district for the next 10 months.
Thank you. We will move on to Stephen for question 2. Looking ahead to the next 10 months of the term of this seat, can you share what you intend to bring to the board and to our district?
So I think you said it's 10 months and then an election. So I think for me, the role of the board is relative. So I don't see it as any different from the role of an executive committee in a company or of a board of another company. So it isn't to run the school district. And I don't think I'm qualified to do it. It is, though, to ask good questions, to ensure good governance, accountability. It is to be engaged, to understand the 5-year plan, understand Dr. Mingle and his leadership team's priorities, what their mission and priorities are, what their plans are. And I think also it's primarily to ensure that the leadership team, the staff, the faculty have all the resources they need to continue doing a good job. So in terms of contribution, I think it's probably a lot of listening, a lot of learning, a lot of questions, and a lot of support primarily. And I think I shared in my resume and my letter probably some of my background and what I think I could bring to the board. So I think that's it.
Great. Thank you. And Mark, the question again is, looking ahead to the next 10 months of the term of this seat, can you share what you intend to bring to the board and our district?
Yeah, I was thinking, kind of build on what I had done over the past 3 years. So I was thinking of it primarily 2 big parts of the board would be the curriculum and test scores and doing what we do best, which is educating the kids. And on the other hand is the finance side of the house. We're going to have a lot of increased enrollment, budget challenges. So meshing the 2, I'd like to be kind of data driven and figure out. We were talking about like a dashboard for test scores and school performance. So get a kind of simplified dashboard of school performance, what drives the school, what are our goals, and then mesh that with also what I would bring to the table on the finance side is just really trying to understand how we're going to tackle the budget challenges of primarily increased enrollment, increased healthcare premium costs, for instance, and just kind of look at those 2 big objectives, I guess, for myself would be trying to get data-driven goals for the curriculum and test scores and whatnot, and then also solve the finance problem for 2023.
Thank you. Moving on to the third and final, it's not really a question, just as an opportunity for any candidate to make any final remarks that you wish to share with the board. We will start with Stephen on this one, and then we will go with Mark, followed by Rich.
So thank you. Well, firstly, thank you for the opportunity to come here and address you tonight. I provided you with my resume and letter of application. So I think that gives you an overview to some of my motivations, and I covered off what I think the role of a board is. So probably I'd just say one more thing on that and then give you a sense for the type of person I am, because I think when you're deliberating, you know, you're going to be sat with me potentially for a number of months, and you should know what you're in for, or at least what I'm like. So I mentioned the quality and how impressed I am and how exceptional the school district is. I said top 10% nationally, which was the last time I looked, which is in the election that I lost. I wouldn't be so flippant as to say the role of this board is masterly in activity, but clearly job number one is don't mess that up, because we have a good thing already and it needs to stay a good thing. I think probably on top of that is maintaining or preferably building on it. That would be, for me, my biggest desire and objectives for this group of people. In terms of the type of person I am and what you should know and what I think is relevant, I'm not very big on board politics and board intrigue. I find it honestly quite tiresome. So you're probably not going to get that from me. I'm going to be doing a lot of listening. And the reason for that, if I'm completely honest, is I'm not a very humble person, but I do know that I don't know everything. And I'm going to need to listen to the experts and understand their perspectives. In terms of how I would probably be in meetings, like I said, I'm going to read, I'm going to prepare well, all the white papers and the documents and such like that come through. I'm going to listen to all of your arguments and all of your views on the various things we discuss. I'm going to do my own research, and in the end, I'm going to reach a position. And you should know that there'll be no ambiguity. There'll be no lack of clarity. You'll know exactly what my position is. But allied to that, and I think as importantly, is whatever we decide within these four walls, whether I think we've been dumb as rocks or we're geniuses, I'm going to publicly represent the decisions that we made. I think that level of integrity and trust is the least that you should all expect from me and, you know, collectively from the board. Probably the only other relevant thing I think is, in anything I do or say, I'm going to be putting the interests of who I view as the key stakeholders first. And in order, that would be students, faculty, supporting staff, Dr. Mingle and his leadership team. And probably anything that distracts from what's good for those stakeholders and is in their best interests, I personally would have a polite but relatively low tolerance for. So I think probably said enough. Mark.
Thank you.
Agree with a
Appreciate
lot
that.
of, very well said. I was thinking you probably, most of you know me from the past 3 years. So I'm also candid. I also take the job seriously. I read the materials ahead of time. I've read studies provided by constituents. I've read up ahead of time, ahead of board meetings, ahead of committee meetings, and I took the job seriously. I made my votes and my contributions independently. I voted based on what I thought was best for the constituents, the students. I didn't vote with a block. I did my homework. I made my decisions if I was taught, and I would reach out to board members ahead of time and discuss those items. I never pre-agreed to any kind of vote. It was always trying to understand the issue at hand and be open and honest and informative and make those contributions independently on what I thought was the best for the school district, school district students, constituents. I think that might have been everything in my letter. So I again, just independently did my homework, took them seriously, and always in the best interest of the district and the school.
Thank you.
Okay, so those were speeches. This is clearly my first rodeo that I didn't have something that lengthy prepared, but I do hope that, like as I stated previously, I've volunteered in the community and served the community. I have children that are just entering the district, so I do have a long time investment in the district. And really, I just hope to continue the excellent work that the Warren schools do and contribute in any way that I can, while I learn about more what the board does while listening to public input and, hoping to do the work that the public wants us to do.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you all. I know it's a little different than normal to have essentially an interview in public, so certainly appreciate that and can understand the feelings that it brings. All that done, I believe the board will now go into executive session.
Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act NJSA 10-4-11 permits the Board of Education to meet in closed session to discuss certain matters. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education adjourns to closed session to discuss material the disclosure of which constitutes an unwarranted invasion of individual privacy. Action will be taken upon return to public session. The length of the meeting is anticipated to be approximately 20 minutes, and be it further resolved that the minutes of this closed session be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
So a second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the board is now in executive session. We will meet next door in room 5.
To come back into public session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the board is returned to public session. I will now open the floor for nominations.
I nominate Mr. Stephen Tor for the open board seat.
Second.
Are there any additional nominations?
Yes, I nominate Mr. Mark Bishi for the open board seat.
Second.
Are there any additional nominations?
Yes, I nominate Mr. Rich Karasovich for the open board seat.
Second.
I assume there are no more.
No more nominations.
Mr. Hagel. Would you mind stepping us through the process?
So board policy states that we will now take a roll call vote on the following motion in the order that the nominations were made. If and when the board reaches a point where a majority of the board is in favor of one candidate, then no more votes will be taken. So currently on the floor is a motion, is the following motion. Resolved that the Board of Education appoints Stephen Tor to the board for a term of February 27th, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. Was a motion by Mrs. Zahn, which was seconded by Ms. Keller. And I will call the roll. Mr. Desai,
No.
Mrs. Fightbaum,
Yes.
Ms. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Otto,
Abstain.
Mr. Valentino,
Abstain.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
Mrs. Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Brzee.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-1 with 2 abstentions. Congratulations, Mr. Tor.
So we will now have we will now move to the oath of office. As we move forward with that, I do want to thank all the Mark and Rich. We're on a first name basis now. Certainly appreciate it. As you might have imagined, it was not a quick discussion. For good reason. We had no wrong decision. So I would highly encourage both of you, as well as anyone else who's interested, to continue towards the board. We're very fortunate to have your interest. The county clerk would be who you can obtain petitions from. I think it's the last Monday in July is typically when they're due. But you can't say enough. Thank you enough for all of your time putting things together and coming out here tonight to speak with us. So it was refreshing to see 3 strong candidates. I can tell you that. And I definitely speak for the board on that. So thank you again. We appreciate it. Mr. Hagel,
Yeah,
would you wish
so,
to-
Mr.
would you
Tor, if
start?
you'll join me up front here, we're gonna do the oath of office, which I have written on a piece of paper for you to read. Yeah, me too. Just get a microphone for you as well. That's gonna be. Here, just use this one. Steve, actually. So if you like to see on TV, I'm gonna read the first line, and repeat it, and we'll go through the. Okay. And you're supposed to raise your right hand. I'm not sure how we're gonna do all of this. That's how we'll do it. All right. Mr. Tor, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Stephen Tor, do solemnly swear
I, Stephen Tor, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States and this state
in the United States and this state,
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I, Stephen Tor, do solemnly swear
I, Stephen Todd, do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
that I possess the qualifications
prescribed by law for the office
prescribed by law for the office
of member of a Board of Education,
of member of the Board of Education,
that I am not disqualified as a voter,
that I am not disqualified as a voter,
and that I am not disqualified due to a conviction
that I am not disqualified due to a conviction
of a crime or offense listed in NJSA 18A 12-1,
of a crime or offence listed in NJSA 18A or 12-1,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of that office
all the duties of that office
according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations. Sign and we'll keep one on record. Okay. Thank you.
We will now move on to discussion items. I don't believe there are any for this evening. We will move to committee reports. Curriculum and Technology Committee, it looks as though there was a canceled meeting. Is there a future scheduled meeting? Or
We're in the process of scheduling a new meeting. There's a due allow it, and we'll be getting a date out shortly for that.
Fantastic.
We'll do the work ahead of it.
Understood. Thank you. Finance, Operations and Security Committee, Mrs. Zahn.
Thank you, Mr. Brzee. I never know how close I should be to this, but I want to make sure that I am heard by all. Bear with me, it's lengthy. The Finance, Operations and Security Committee met February 13th of 2023 with all members present. We started the meeting by discussing the status of the referendum projects. Specifically, the first item was the fire alarm project. The committee had previous questions when this had come up. It is a large cost item, and the scope is fairly extensive. So PSA, which is the architect that the board uses, joined us for the beginning part of our meeting to take us through the overview of the scope of work for the new fire alarm system, as well as to explain some of the provisions within the PSA contract for this work, specifically the number of site visits and how that allows PSA to work with the district and the contractor. PSA also shared with the committee their experience recently on the cost per square foot for projects of this type. We moved on to discuss the revised referendum budget. You'll recall from the last meeting or the meeting before that, that we had notified the public that the total referendum budget is over budget presently. Over budget is a little bit of a weird way to say that. We have recast the budget to account for contracts actually placed and then done estimates on those that have not yet been placed. The total estimate now is about 1.3 above what was originally budgeted. And this is, taking a hard look at why this is and what options we have to bring that budget back towards where we would like it to be. PSA shared with us their experience speaking with HVAC suppliers and that the lack of bidders for this work in the marketplace presently is because contractors doing this type of work have enough work. And some contractors are actually adding in foreseeable liquidated damages when they see challenging lead times on being able to get to your project. So it remains the recommendation that we will go out to rebid the HVAC options at a later date, hopefully when there are more bidders available in the marketplace and the costs we hope to see come down. Accordingly, we took a look at the order in which we are putting bids out on the remaining referendum projects and prioritize the HVAC and the fire alarms. The science labs will be bid out after we know what the HVAC and fire alarms are going to cost, so that we can evaluate whether or not we need to do any adjustments or tailoring to the science lab projects to fit within our projected budget. We then spoke, PSA remained with us for this conversation about ROD grant applications. Just as a reminder to everyone, on June 30th of 2022, the NJDOE announced $350 million, which would be available for regular operating district grants. The applications run from January 30th of 2023 to May 1. And these grants, it's our understanding, prioritize essential building system upgrades such as HVAC. Warren has been very proactive in addressing our HVAC needs. However, we are in need of replacement of roof units at both Mount Horeb and the middle school, as well as other replacements and upgrades at both schools. These items, I'm sure, will appear on our next 5-year capital plan. BSA was asked to prepare a scope and cost estimates for the necessary HVAC work at these 2 schools. HVAC projects, as I just said, are coming in a lot higher in recent history than they have in the past. We are not able to recommend that the full scope and cost for the Mount Horeb and middle school HVAC upgrades and replacements proceed to a full grant writing. The cost was simply too high. So we are submitting to DJOE to identify what state funds would be available, since the cost of doing an analysis is relatively inexpensive and does not commit the district to completing the projects. We are adjusting the estimates and scope so that we get in closer to addressing our more pressing needs at a price point that is potentially within what we have available or can be made available in the capital reserve. The administration will be getting back to us at our next finance committee meeting regarding the grant application scope for committee review. We then moved on to the 23-24 budget. As is true for other local bodies, this year's budget presents significant challenges. For the school district, this is my term. It might actually be regarded as a bit of a perfect storm. For the first time, the district qualifies for an enrollment adjustment. This adjustment is calculated on a pre-budget basis and is added to the levy before any other adjustments, including before the calculation of the oft-referenced 2% cap. We are not going to continue calling it that because it turns out it's not actually a 2% cap for reasons that will become obvious later on. We are referring to that as an inflation adjustment going forward. So what does this enrollment adjustment represent? Well, annually in October, the district reports on its enrollment. The district qualifies for an upward adjustment based on enrollment when the year-over-year enrollment increases sufficiently. This increase for this budget year is measured by comparing October of 2022 to October 2021 enrollment. In our case, the enrollment increase has been extraordinary. For many years, the Warren district experienced declining enrollment. However, those smaller class sizes started matriculating to the high school several years ago, and likely is a contributing factor to what I understand is a declining enrollment at the high school. We have several more years of lower class sizes at the higher grades that will perhaps continue this trend at the high school. However, enrollment in the K-8 district is growing rapidly. The growth appears to be attributed to some new housing construction, but also to a higher than predicted turnover of existing housing. As we have continued to receive new students since October of 2022, it is expected that when enrollment is next measured in October of 2023 for the purpose of calculating an enrollment adjustment to our tax levy, the district may well qualify again. This may be true for some number of years going forward. I hope this corrects any misunderstanding in the public. If they've heard that the K-8 district enrollment is declining, that would be old news. It's not true now. In addition to the enrollment adjustment, the district has qualified for a healthcare adjustment. As has been mentioned at previous meetings, healthcare represents a significant line item on the budget and is rising this year in excess of 15%. Our budget actually needs to account for both this year in excess of 15% and an estimate for the 2024 year. This is because our fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30th, where the health insurance costs run on a calendar year. We've been told by our broker that we need to budget for an additional 15% increase in 2024. That is, in fact, 30%. Due to this high rate of increase, the district qualifies for an adjustment to the budget. That is what constitutes the healthcare adjustment. The district has also banked for 3 years, banked cap available for the use in developing a budget for this year. 1 year of that bank cap will expire if not used. As enrollment increases, so too does the need for staffing. If you've been following the board agendas, you will have noticed that throughout this year, the board has been approving the creation of new positions as we have responded to the arrival of new students. A testament to the quality of our special testament to the quality of our special programs. Great attention is being given by the Finance Committee to the administration's feedback on staffing projections. The committee remains committed to the small class sizes that have been a hallmark of the district and which is a core value for many of our stakeholders. Planning for the long-range needs of the district has always been a feature of the Warren School District's approach to budgeting. For a decade, the district has taxed only what was necessary to meet those needs. In that time, we have successfully funded tens of millions of dollars of capital improvements without a direct tax increase, and while maximizing the contribution of the state, thereby returning dollars paid to Trenton back to our schools. I would be remiss if I didn't note the professionalism and competence of our grounds and building staff who work hard, whose hard work more than pays for itself in projects that are completed in-house. Nonetheless, for the first time in many years, we do not expect the end-of-year monies to contribute greatly to our capital reserve. The need to address our 5-year capital plan and to plan for capital reserve is an ongoing conversation as the committee moves towards a preliminary budget at the next meeting. Additionally, as we move on to our next Finance Committee meeting, the committee is continuing to evaluate measures that will lower the tax levy, including offsetting items that would otherwise be in the budget. Through the use of federal COVID relief funds and the availability of such funds to offset expenses, the pre-purchase of potentially large purchase items from our EOI, which would otherwise appear in the next year's budget. And the committee continues to discuss other offsets proposed by the administration, as well as pilot funding and state aid increases. Finally, and importantly, the committee members acknowledge that the budget increase for the 23-24 year will exceed 2%. It is important that the public is aware that this is a certainty if we are to address the rising costs, rise in enrollment, and rising need for capital funds. Through years of careful budget management and through adjustments to what the district is entitled to due to rising health costs and enrollment, we are able to plan for the immediate future. The next meeting of the Finance Committee is on March 6th, 2023. I want to repeat what has been told to you by the superintendent that on March 27th of 2023 at 6:30 at the Warren Middle School, the Finance Committee will make itself available for a public information session where it will take questions and attempt to give on-the-spot feedback to anybody who would like more detailed information on the 23-24 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Zahn. Moving on to Personnel Negotiations and Communications Committee. I don't believe we have any meetings to report out, which brings us to public commentary. This is the first of 2 public commentary sessions for this evening. Our first of 2 is limited to agenda items. If any members of the public wish to share their comments and feedback with the board on agenda items, you'll have 3 minutes to do so. If you could kindly state your name and address, group affiliation if appropriate, we would certainly welcome your feedback. We will start in the room here first. If you wouldn't mind, we're going to bring a microphone over. If you could state your name and address, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie Morales, 89 King George Road. Ms. Zahn, thank you for bringing up next year's budget, 23-24. What we're here to talk about is this year. I'd like to first off say good evening to Dr. Mingle, Mr. Hegel, and President Breezy, and all of you at the board tonight. Thank you for having us and coming through the snow that is outside here. My name is Leslie Morales, and I am the ALT PTO co-president. My counterpart, Jessica Badilo, is here on Zoom, and sitting here beside me are PTO executive board members, as well as members of the ALT PTO that dedicate themselves tirelessly and passionately to make magic happen for our children all year round. I'm here tonight to address some serious concerns regarding the school budget earmarked for school building use as it relates to items run by the PTO. For argument's sake, let's call it PTO funds. By way of background, when the pandemic hit in 2020, PTOs were no longer able to serve lunch in the schools, which was our largest fundraiser. The following year, 2020-2021, Warren qualified for the National School Lunch Program. The Board of Ed decided it was their responsibility to provide enrichment programs, so it funded the schools with $20,000 PTO funds to run those enrichment programs. This worked well. The PTO was able to use those funds for curriculum-based assemblies and other programs that the PTO could no longer afford because it was missing its largest fundraiser. Once again, for the 22-23 year, the Board of Ed voted to provide the $20,000 PTO funds. Our PTO met over the summer to budget and plan out the entire year's activities relying on those funds. As the school year progressed, certain programs were approved by school administration, but most recently, here in February, when it came time to request funds from the Board of Ed for those programs, they are now being held up, not processed, and in some cases denied outright. We understand that there are some issues with the entire school board budget, but we sit here before you tonight to ask that you please do not deny us those PTO funds mid-year, as we need them for the student enrichment activities. We have worked with our teachers and administrative staff to bring many curriculum-based events to our students in the coming weeks. We have already scheduled everything. Agreements have been made with local community businesses, and our vendors are waiting on payment. Do not force us to deny the students of ALT these assemblies and activities because we follow the curriculum, and those events happen to fall mostly in the spring. We have worked so hard with so many wonderful, non-paid volunteers that have dedicated themselves in countless hours to bring these events to life. The denial of these funds will not only be a tragedy to our children, but will impact our wonderful volunteer community that we have built in our school for years to come. We understand that the budget must be reconfigured, but we implore you to look elsewhere as to so not directly impact our children, your students. Furthermore, we also ask that you please continue to vote to provide the schools with the PTO funds for the 23-24 school year. You already voted as a board to enter the National School Lunch Program, which prevents us again from making money for the PTO through the My School Days program. And you had decided previously that the Board of Ed should be responsible for such programs like assemblies. Thank you for your time. I know I introduced myself as a PTO president, but I am sitting here before you as a parent and a very committed volunteer. You have the power to make this school year great or deny our children from having these wonderful experiences we have already planned by denying those PTO funds. Please look into your hearts and make the right decision for us all here in Warren. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to provide any thoughts or feedback for agenda items? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to provide comments and feedback for the first public commentary session? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the first public commentary session?
Motion to close the first commentary. session.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The first public commentary is now closed. Moving on to items for board consideration and action. Dr. Mingle, is there any items you wish to? We should move forward. Mrs. Zahn.
Motion to approve section 15, items for board consideration and action, items A, 1 through 3, B, 1 through 9, C, 1 through 11, D, 1 and 2.
Second.
We have a roll call vote.
Right, I will call the roll. Mr. Desai,
Yes.
Mrs. Fightbaum,
Yes.
Ms. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Tor,
Yes.
Mr. Valentino,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
Mrs. Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Brzee.
Yes,
Motion's passed 9-0.
thank you. Moving on to any unfinished business items. Seeing none. New business items. Seeing none. This brings us to our second public commentary. This could be on any topic, doesn't have to be on the agenda. Members of the public could kindly state their name and address. Group affiliation if appropriate. Board would certainly welcome your feedback and comments to the board. We'll start in the room. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to provide comments or feedback? Move over to Zoom. If you could kindly use the raise your hand feature. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing it. Mrs. Silver, please go ahead.
I'm glad some of what was said was just said. There seems to be an enormous amount of misinformation going around our district. I'd like to call it something else because that's what it is, but I won't.
Could you
As
kindly
past
state your name and
president-
address before? I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Heather Silver, 35 Quail Run.
Thank you.
As a past president of the PTO at Warren Middle School for 3 years, I'd like to make sure that everyone is clear on how the 8th grade trips worked in the past, prior to COVID, as far as booking, payment, and oversight. The district chose every trip every year. I would assume they did this in conjunction with the principal and/or vice principal, but I really can't speak to that. After the trip was priced out, including busing and any incidentals, the principal would come to the PTO and ask if they could donate to the trip. In any given year, the PTO would donate anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000, depending upon the number of students in the school and the cost of the trip that year. In addition, parents had to pay anywhere from $200 to $400 for their student to go, as the PTO was unable to cover the full funding for each child, and the Board of Education refused to contribute anything. There was actually a time that I thought we sort of shared the cost, but I found that I was naively incorrect. I'm sure Mrs. Zahn can attest as an out-of-parent pocket cost for her children when they were offered a trip. To my knowledge from other friends out of Warren, this was still cheap by comparison because their PTOs didn't contribute anything, but their districts did. I come here not only to explain this, but to point out that under no circumstances is the current 8th grade non-trip plan that is planned to be around the corner from the middle school, a brainchild of our amazingly involved PTO. It was done so strictly by the school and along with the teachers, and to my knowledge, along with the district. I can only assume approved by the district. I don't believe anyone came to see if the PTO or the parents were even willing to contribute anything to make this a better trip, because again, for whatever reason, our district doesn't feel the need to contribute. I guess the thank you and congratulations that our students get from our school district and Board of Education and what they feel acceptable after 9 years of attending school in our district is nothing. The PTO pays the bulk of the graduation fees at the PAC Center at the high school as well. And by the way, is still continually asked for more and more each year, including police and buses. They're just the first two that come to mind. And we keep getting more opportunities for fundraising taken away. So to tie this all up, I just want to make sure that everybody knows all of this. So the next time you want to support millions of dollars going towards a kitchen or some other ridiculous non-necessity like extending contracts ahead of their term, law degrees, or piano lessons, all of which we function just fine without. Remember all the basics that our kids are not getting. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Craig Margolis, please go ahead. If you could state your name and address, please.
Hi, it's Craig Margulies, 16 Quilpen Way. I've recently learned of a series of incidents in which an early elementary student in our district was victim to repeated unwanted touching of highly personal areas by other students on the school bus. I know that Dr. Mingle was made aware of this, as were faculty. I'm not certain if this news made its way to the board. It does not seem to have been included as an official bullying incident for some reason, maybe because it happened while the bus was waiting to unload rather than in the actual school. I'm not sure. The reason I call this to attention is because of our district's failure to teach state mandated sexual abuse and assault awareness and prevention education. And I want to stress that this mandate was entirely separate from the recent curriculum changes that received much more fanfare. In July 2019, it was signed into state law after being passed unanimously by our legislature that all schools must incorporate age-appropriate sexual abuse and assault awareness and prevention education beginning in preschool. This is based on an initiative known as Erin's Law. New Jersey was the 36th state to require this education. Its association with reduced instances of sexual abuse and assault is not controversial. Meanwhile, our K-5 health curriculums have not been updated since 2017. According to the outlines on the board website, the only mention of sexual abuse education in elementary school is in 3rd grade. The board revised its policy last February to include the new state mandate, which was supposed to drive the required updates to the curriculum, but obviously that curriculum did not pass, and here we are now a year later. The victim in this incident lacked the language and awareness to identify what was happening to them and report it to a parent. It actually took another early elementary student seeing this happen repeatedly, telling their parents, who then notified the parents of the victim. With the perpetrators, and I hesitate to call them that as they are elementary school students, would they have better understood the severity of their actions and the lines that they were crossing had they been receiving this education themselves? We have the knowledge and resources to do better, but instead our district failed this student and their family. I know you have a conundrum with how you're going to deal with the health curriculum as a whole. It seems the plan may be to punt to next year. Fine. But in the meantime, can we please address this incident with a sense of urgency that it demands? Is there a reason why we cannot carve this portion out of the previously rejected curriculum to ensure that this is being taught to our students beginning this school year? I hope that you will respond to this directly tonight with action items and a plan for how this can be implemented as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any additional comments in the room or on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there a motion to close public commentary?
Motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? The second public commentary is now closed. For the last public comment, Mr. Margulies, I will be reaching out to you directly. Please look for that. I believe I have contact information. I will try my best to get to you if I do not. Any additional items?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? The board is completed. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you, everyone.